right, so let's talk about some Oscar hopefuls. You know, the time of us recording this, I really do
Sure.
think that they have Oscar potential. And they're coming out on Netflix too, boys. So yeah, Netflix not playing around. I love their rollout so far where, 2 weeks ago they gave us Frankenstein, and week before we got this film here, Nouvelle Vague. So I'm now finally going to talk about that. And then just a few days ago, we got Train Dreams, which I'll follow up that Nouvelle Vague review with. So yeah, let me start off with Nouvelle Vague, right? So just right out the gate, right? The reason why I wanted to see this is because of the title and because of what the story is about, right? So yeah, this is the newest film from my boy Richard Linklater, right? Someone who I
Right.
have grown to admire over
Yeah.
like what the decades he's been making films, right? And it's really this film that kind of reminded me, I should say, how much of a film fan he is, right? Just the mere fact that he always tries to do things a little bit differently, right? Whether it's through films like Waking Life or Boyhood or something like that, right?
Right.
But then he
Right.
will just give us, normal, not let's say traditional stuff like Hitman,
He
right?
did
Which
the
was
he did the he did the what I don't know if I remember in my film in he did the Sunset trilogy, right? I want
yes,
to say.
yes, he did. Yeah,
Right.
that was the show
Right. Right.
that,
Right.
that really really kind of kickstarted his
Right. Right. Right.
career.
Right.
Not,
I,
not,
I
not
was
so
I was
much.
I was about to lose I was about to lose my film nerd card. I was like,
Oh,
wait, he do that right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
not 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 so much Slacker, but it's really the Before series. That's what it is, right? Yeah.
Right.
Which is a show which is a trilogy. Sorry, I need to get them a collection. Courtesy of
Yeah.
Criterion, right? And just to get this out of the way, I think that this show is kind of designed to be in the Criterion collection for the simple reason that the movie that it is pretty much homaging throughout the entirety of this film is in the Criterion collection, right? So what this movie is about, and it's a good thing that you say film nude, because yeah, this is, as I said on Facebook, right? This is a movie about a film nude made by a film nude for film nudes.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what this movie is, right? So yeah, what Nouvelle Vague is, it's first off, French for New Wave, right? So yes, this taps into the French New Wave, right? Specifically in
Right.
1959,
Okay.
right? And yeah, this show, in a nutshell, is about the production of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. So we are
Okay. Okay.
seeing
Interesting. Oh,
pre
okay. So we're
and
doing
the
this.
production of this movie
Right.
throughout the entirety of
Okay.
the show. And the moment
Okay.
I saw that in the trailer,
This
like,
is this is kind
what?
of like
What?
like what we get with Mank. Where
Yes,
there's these kind of
yes.
little borderline self-indulgent film history stuff. Right, okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, and also in black and white too, eh? And
Right, of
I'll
course.
talk about the technical stuff in a bit, right? But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So we are seeing Godard as one of the members of the Cahiers du Cinema, which was like these
Right,
group
right,
of
right.
critics, let's say primarily
Yeah,
critics, secondarily filmmakers, right? Yeah, who would go and see every French movie that come out, and then you'll go on, in the article and be like, yeah, it was good and it was great,
yeah, it does a
or
vibe. Yeah.
it was a vibe, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, it does a vibe. No, but regardless how you feel about them, though, like I think they problematic in a different way, but we could get into that. But I thought, yeah, these guys was an interesting like trend they created for the most part. I want to put created in quotes, but you get the point, right? Uh, and yeah, it's an interesting period about talking about things and what it is to be a critic and that kind of stuff. So I did skip this. I didn't find time because I didn't know what exactly it was about. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, Jean-Luc being who he is, have been seeing his friends making films. There's a great moment where he actually watches the 400 Blues. Yes, one of the
Right,
great French wave
great
films
movie.
ever made. And he's
Yeah,
like,
great movie.
boy,
Yeah,
I could do this, I want to do this. And yeah, he hooks up with a producer and yeah, he
right,
starts off making this film, right? And we are literally seeing every day. I think it runs for about I think it's like about 16 days it run for. And
right.
it kind of explains why the show is the way it is, as in the movie
Right.
itself, Breathless, right? I'll get to that in a bit, right?
Right.
And yeah, we are just seeing this production play out. In particular, they zero in on the basically the two main leads of the film. That would be Jean Paul Belmondo, right? At least there's an actor playing him, right? And
Right.
Jean Sebig, right? Who would be the sort of Bonnie and Clyde character, sorry, in the film, right? And yeah, it's really, just to jump into the reviewer, it's just this really nice, laid back, sip on some coffee, or if you're real bougie, pull out the red wine for. Is
Right.
that kind of vibe, too. It's just a love letter to that era, right? What blew me away first off with the movie, right, is that it is almost entirely in French. And I
Right.
am
Right.
watching the end credits for this scene, like, but wait now, but like nearly everybody who work in this film French. Like what? Like
Right. Right.
this is
Right. Right.
how far Richard film nerdism has gone, that he so want to make a love letter to the French New Wave, right? That
Yeah. Yeah.
his
Make a French movie.
entire crew and
Right.
cast is French, right? I mean, that's, or I
Right.
should say, a majority of them for all I know. That is kind of amazing, right? Also, too, just like Mank, he was able to capture just the look of
Right.
of Breathless, that film stock look. Dog, the
Right.
man had the goal to put cigarette burns in the movie. Like on
Right.
purpose, and the man put, and,
Oh
and
God.
not the white one, he put the black
Yeah.
one us. Like
Yeah.
like
Oh God,
Richard,
man.
Richard,
You're hungry, yeah.
Richard, what you doing to us? What's
Yeah.
this? What's this? What's this?
What we doing? Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, like if you listen to it, you hear like a little film crackle, like you hear you know what I mean, like you hear a
Right.
little duster as you about to transition. Like, Hus, what you doing with this movie? Hus? What was this?
Right.
What's this, right? But yeah, I felt this though. Like I would say, it takes a little while to pick up, to get rolling, right? But then, as soon as he gets the actors together, right? In particular, Jean Serberg, right, who is played brilliantly by Zoe Dutch, right? And I would say, as far as the Oscar race goes, I could see her getting a Best Actress nom for this, right? Because she looks like Jean, right? And just how she plays the character is great, right? Because yeah, I mean, we know her from the film and the character she plays, right? Where I think she was an American who lives in Paris, and she just runs into she boyfriend or ex, whoever it is, and he on the run and drama and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, it's established that she is American, and you see her husband at the time and whatnot. But I love how it's framed where, and just going back to Jean-Luc Godard, right? Where she is under contract to work on this film, right?
Right.
And the way how Godard shoots, boy. And this to me, I think, is the reason why Richard make this film, is to show that, listen, this is one of those one-in-a-lifetime moments where a guy like Jean-Luc Godard get away with this, because if anybody was to do this shit now, they would
Right.
get me
Can't
out
do
so bad, whereas, like, listen,
Right.
there's like moments where this man will have the camera set up and everything, and
Right.
they will just do one scene, and you just see done for the day. That shit could
Right.
never ever fly in this era though, and yet this man get away
Right.
with
So
that, boy.
this is why I thought Goddard and them was a little on the problematic end of saying that they could be criticizing and then say they can make films better than other people, but really what they do is they very deliberately work outside the restrictions of how filmmaking works. And it's kind of like working without a union or not paying people or doing something like that. And then saying, well, look how I went under budget. I'm like, well, yeah, because you're basically engaged in slavery. Like stuff like that, right? It a lot of people who think like that, is this kind of Procrustean kind of mindset, and then acting as if, well, I just smart. Like, dude, stealing from people is not intelligence. Like, stuff like that. And that's how I felt about him. Like, when you get into the backstory of these people, there were a little, let's just call him a colleague of ours who engaged in that behavior. And I was not a fan of that. And he's like, you push up yourself. And I'm like, hey, bro, you kind of thief a set of equipment for like months, right? Like, to make a movie. And that's how I always feel about this school of, these school of guys. Like, yeah, they were valid in terms of like the critiques, but they were kind of bullshitters, right? Like, I admit that in that sense. You're right. And I'm glad that this movie addresses this. I'll watch this. I'll make the extra effort to watch it to judge it properly. But like, yeah, that was one of the problems with some of these French New Wave types now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that whole. Oh well, we could do better than Ollie, and then Ollie when I actually check how they're doing better, quote unquote, is they're just cutting us at the corners or doing things in ways that are like, oh no, well that really shouldn't be that thing, or you shouldn't do it like that. And we could get into a debate about how you should do something or the rules of it, but don't act as if you act as if you invent some fancy way to do it. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Well,
Exactly.
that's how it is. Right, and it's not like I'm trying to gatekeep or anything like that, but you get the point, right? Like, it's this kind of cavalier attitude that people like to have, and then acting as if they're so smart. No, it's bullshit. Sorry to say it, and I do think a lot of these guys in many ways were kind of bullshitters in that sense. No? Right, and that's why we could talk about that. I suppose we could lead into that with Shelby Hooks a little better, like that aspect of the problem. No? A lot of people who just talking, no? Talk is talk, no? And then after, you can't do nothing after the fact. Oh, well. You're good.
Right. Well, speaking of Shelby Oaks, right? Well, remember what you said in that episode where, where I made the quote, right? Which is like, the best way to
Right,
criticize a
right.
movie is by making
Let's
one,
make
right?
another movie.
It's
Yeah,
from,
make another movie.
it's what Godard said. I actually forgot that,
Right,
right?
it's got that. Yeah,
And
it's
he
got that.
mentioned that in the
Quoted,
film,
right? Yeah.
right?
It was
Yeah.
either Godard or who's the other famous one? I got slipping my mind right
Oh,
now.
there's so much. I'll talk about
It was
the
like
guest
the two main
appearances
ones.
in the movie.
Godard
Yeah?
and who did 400 Blues? Who made 400 Blues again?
Oh gosh. Okay. Forgive me, folks, but I forgot the name right now. Not Rossellini. Gosh, I forget the name.
Truffaut. Truffaut.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
that was
Francois Truffaut. That's it. Yeah.
Truffaut, right.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Exactly. So what Richard does very well, and I actually applaud him for this, right, is doing the homage, right, but also doing the slight critique on him and the nature of what he was doing, right?
Right.
Because yes, what he was
Right.
able to achieve with Breathless is amazing, right? It is one of the most influential films ever made. I love the
Right.
film, right? But I just love it more from I was introduced to this in film school, and it was kind of cool and laid back. Just the sort of nonchalant style of how it was done. Yes, corners were cut and whatnot, but just the style of it. It was more of a style over substance kind of film, right? But that's how it impacts so many filmmakers, like Richard, and to extent Quentin Tarantino, right? That's how he was able to do a film like Reservoir Dogs have a lot to do with that film, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I think the release of this film is very purposeful too, right? Because look at what we talked about before with Shelby Oaks, right? A film critic turned director. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna show you this now. People who quick to sharpen all their blades, or they want to bust Chris throat because they didn't like the film. But watch this movie here, for example, and understand that this is nothing new, Like critics was doing this for years, eh? But look at how this played, and look at how interesting this is, right? And,
Right.
do a contrast with it, basically, right? Because, yes, while Jean-Luc was just doing things on the fly, half the time he didn't really know what he was doing. He just had, he kind of
Yeah.
knew it, visually, but he just
No, it's
didn't
one
really
of
know how to
those-
convey it,
yeah,
right?
it's one of those-
At the same time, I was
it's
like,
one
but
of
you could have done this better, Jay. Like, you're
Right,
quick to
exactly.
call this artist out for doing XYZ, but you're not doing anything better, you
Right.
know?
Right. No, yeah, it's a classic. There's another classic problem with that type of person, right? Like, it's the whole. Yeah, they say not only they're cutting corners or doing things in a certain way, but they also, it's a false conceit of their own history and their own myth making that it's going to be the thing after it, right? They're going to bullshit and then make up a narrative after the fact because they're good storytellers in that sense. Like, and I do have a problem with, and then on top of that, because of how the nature of filmmaking is, and art in general. Sorry to say it, but it's one of those ladder pulling problems, right? You do something. And then because you have the whole narrative of your glory, you get to pull up the ladder on how another person will do it. We've had this all the time. This person do something and they basically effectively, I wouldn't want to say the word cheat, but effectively do the bullshit shortcut. And then when another person want to come and do the bullshit shortcut, you can't do that because that's a bullshit shortcut. Because it's like, well, so it's not about the crime, it's about getting catch then. That's the way they kind of see it. That's how these guys all felt like to me. Like in terms of, and I'm glad that we get in this kind of breaking down and that kind of myth making, especially when it comes to art and these kind of things. I don't know. It's feel like that. It's weird.
Yeah, but that's just to move quickly, right? So I like that it's a mixture of critique, but also
Right.
homage to it, because at the end of the
exactly,
day,
right.
I don't think
It's still a good movie.
yeah, clearly Richard didn't see this to say, oh, Breathless is bullshit. No, Breathless is
Right,
great
right.
and impactful, and this is the reason why,
Right.
right? One thing I really like about Jean-Luc Godard in this film, right? I forgot the actor's name, right? But he's a French actor, right? Is how this man will just be quoting people, quoting. Oh, like this, what
Right.
this guy said, what this director said, what this artist
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
And you just be doing
It-
that
it-
every
it-
time
it's-
somebody
it's
pull him
like
up,
what,
listen, dog. Like you shoot for 2 hours, or you tell Jean Sebuk, for example, you don't want no makeup, what you telling me? So but this is she makeup artist, like this party contract, like what were you doing? And he would just pull out a quote. It's funny, but it's like, yeah,
Right.
that's the mindset. I love that. But yeah, the way how Zoe as Jean reacts to these moments, I love, and how she just pretty much how she recaptures just the performance that Sebek did in that film is great though. She's spot on, looks like the real actress in my opinion, right? And yeah,
Right.
I would say in terms of like this Oscar potential, yeah, I could see her with a Best Actress nom, right? Or I don't know. Well, I mean, you could say Best Supporting Actress, but no, she was kind of front and center in the film as well, too, right? And the guy who played Jean-Paul Belmondo, I thought that he was great as well. He certainly looked like the guy from he certainly looked like Belmondo, right? One thing I really liked too, and this is very so film nerdy, yeah? He would have moments where he will like introduce all the famous
Right.
names in the French New Wave, right? And he does it in such a way that they will just be watching the camera and just see the names underneath.
Okay.
I was just
So
like, like Richard.
so this,
This kind
yeah,
of
yeah. No,
hard though, but
this is kind of like okay. So this is something I love, but at the same time I am concerned about, which is this kind of modernized hagiography of recent history, relatively recent history. We got this with Oppenheimer and science, right? Like all the maths and science and all, look at this character,
Mhm.
showing up like if he's Doctor Strange or something.
Yes, I remember you
Like
said that. Yeah,
I, yeah. But it on the one end, I do think like it's worth it. Like he can let it get away with this, but like I find we getting again a little too much in the bag of these catering to these people in this way. Like, well, it was just like normal though. Like it wasn't that great too. But that's how the movie is. I did nature this kind of stuff though. So it's interesting to watch this kind of make it in real time play out there, because especially on the internet, where the internet is kind of you know sludge everything down into Slack. But yeah, I'm really interested into taking it this now, so I'll probably watch it tonight and give it a review soon.
yeah. So there's a couple more things, right? One understated thing about this movie, yeah, I know it'll pass people's radars, is the
Right,
music or the use of music, right? It's very
right,
reminiscent of Breathless, where they will use like about
right.
5 or 6 songs and they'll just keep repeating them. So like this film, Nouvelle Vague, does that. Like you will hear like 5 or 6 songs and they work, but it's just how they use it. It's like, wait, no, but I hear this song like 10 minutes ago, but it's like, no, it's meant to replicate how music was used in Breathless. That actually kind of works, right?
Right.
And
Right, right.
just the way how it's paced is very well done. It kind of I think it runs for about an hour and like 40, 45 minutes, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. But I will admit it does take a while to build, right? But then when the production starts, it's like, all right, I'm in. I get where you're coming from, right? But yeah, that being said, this is not gonna be for everybody. I would say that this is not the film that you just come home late after a hard day's work and say, all right, let me pull up Netflix. I'm going to fire up Nouvelle Vague. No, 5 minutes into that movie, you've fallen asleep, dog. You have to be in the mood to watch this. That's why I say cup of
Yeah, like
coffee or red wine, sip on that, and just watch that. That's what it is. It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
It's yeah, one of those film. Yeah, it's film nerd for film nerds shit, and then you might talk about the behind the scenes stories of the film, that kind of stuff. Again, if you enjoyed Mank, I didn't love Mank, but like I appreciated Mank because of the counter narrative stuff, um, involving the behind the scenes, because it had a whole political thing involving well, Mank was loosely based on what do you call it this one,
Oh,
also well,
yeah, Orson Welles, and the
right.
production of Suzuki.
Right. Loosely, but a lot of people think a lot of it was like a big political thing and to hype up a certain type of thing, and film as propaganda and all of that aspect of it, and that's why it was interesting. But you don't know, that's just speculation. You could only piece together bits and pieces through interviews and whatever it is and whatever journalism you're willing to put up with. And yeah, so like with this, I want to see if you'll go into that. So I'll have to sit down and get back into my film history bag, and then work out if this movie is good, or how much he bullshitting. So you'll find out. I'll dig it up and I'll find out.
Right, and one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of history and interviews, I would not be surprised if Richard did extensive research into making this film, because I don't think that
Right.
the moments where scenes are being filmed were just, or at least the dialogue involved was just imagined. Like maybe the dialogue was imagined, but I imagine what
What did
happened
he?
on set happened on set, right? And when you see the film, you know
Right.
what I talk about, right?
One of the problems. One of the problems with this kind of stuff, unfortunately, is that you're not sure what kind of like narrative you'll cater to. Like, because he could just be a fan of somebody, and you're not sure what kind of history he catering to or not. Now that's why I don't know where like whistling letters bias or opinion on this, that, or the other. Like obviously you're not going to be a neutral person on X, Y, and Z. So we'll find out. Well, I had to dig it up because sure we're gonna get drama digging up this narrative now, but we'll see. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as a wrap up here, right? So the best way I could sum this up, right? This movie is, that's why I say, just going back to Criterion Collection, right? this is like the perfect companion piece to Breathless because, like I say, Breathless
Right.
is on correct is in the collection. Right? That's one of my dream buys, right? Because even though, like, admittedly, I watch the film, I love the film, right? But like, thanks to this movie here, I now see why it feels a little scattershot in terms of the narrative and the scene construction and stuff like that. There's a kind of a scattershot, sort of a looseness to it, right? But the looseness is part of the charm of the film, right? But seeing this movie here is like, oh, that's why it like that. Oh, okay.
Right.
That's why that's why that scene play out like that. Oh, okay, right?
Right.
So it's very smart and meta in that way, right? But yeah, I could see this is a perfect companion piece to that film, right? I could also see this being a great, like, let me just say, a great special feature. Like, if they ever plan to re-release Breathless, they could tack this on as just this hour and 40-minute long bonus feature, kind of telling you, oh, this is the behind the scenes, right? If you just don't want to hear the details with the, with whatever bonus features are on the original disc, right? And the biggest compliment I could give this, right? For film schools, I would say, after you run Breathless, run Nouvelle Vague afterwards. That's the best way. Like you see the film and then you see the film about the film. That's like the perfect double feature right there, right? So while I was not completely in love with the film nerd in me absolutely enjoyed this. I could definitely see this as an honorable mention, right? That's just something that I want to remember by year's end, right? As far as Oscar stuff goes, I could definitely see this with Best Actress with Zoe Dutch though, because again, she embodies Jean Seberg so brilliantly, in my opinion, right? But I could also see this, lastly, being nominated for Best Non-English, well, we don't see international feature again. Yeah, Best, or do we? I can't remember. But yeah, just as Best Non-English film. Because look, if I'm on like the guy who did if Jonathan Glazer could win for Zone of Interest, right? And he's not German, then Richard Linklater could certainly get nominated for this film, and he not French.
Yeah, I no, but I was worried that it's just gonna be oh god, what's the name of this movie again? The Artist all over again.
No, it is not The Artist, folks. It is not The Artist. It's not pandering to anybody.
Yeah, that's the problem, because the artist was a little too self-indulgent.
Yeah, way too self-indulgent. This one is like, listen, I know all they don't care about this. I know all they find this shit boring, but I love this shit. I gotta make a movie about this. So it's indulgent in that sense. They're like, oh, we're celebrating the glory days of the silent film and the musical, like what the artist did.
I mean, they're all overdue to the artist here. They're all overdue.
Yeah. And yeah, I would admit I was on the artist hype train, but then after the win Best Picture, I was like, I forget about that, right?
No, but the thing is, I only like the artist because of the main guy, Jean-Luc, right? I thought he's a great actor, but like, holy shit, boy, that movie is way too self-indulgent.
It was. Although I do like the silent film aesthetic. I like that. I like the homage.
You get what they're going for. You get what they're going for, of course, but like it's really self-indulgent. It's kind of terrible when you think about it.
But yeah, so for me, I will give this a light to decent 4 out of 5. But I will say this is for the film buff crowd. If you want to learn about, film history and you want to learn about the French New Wave, this is the perfect film to watch, right? But I recommend watching the film itself, Breathless, to get the context, and also watching 400 Blues and, other classics that came out within, I would say, before the release of Breathless, which was in 1960. I recommend watching those films first and then jumping into this, right? But yeah, if you're not a fan of that stuff, then this will do nothing for you. Again, it's a vibe. You have to go into it with your coffee, with your Merlot, with your wine, and you will get that. This is the perfect like film club kind of film, right? And I have to applaud Richard for actually making a film like this, especially at this stage of his career. And yeah, it just really shows how prolific of a filmmaker this man is, right? Because look, this last year we saw Hitman, loved Hitman, right? And now he's doing this homage to French New Wave. We're like, dog, like, wow, like, what's this? He's doing this thing, and I can't be mad at this, right? But I really do see this having Oscar potential later on. If it gets snubbed, it gets snubbed, but I hope that this is not a film that will be forgotten. I do have a feeling, because Richard's films are already on Criterion, and I would say the Before trilogy is there, Slacker is there, Boyhood is there, right? So I have a feeling that Nouvelle Vague isn't far ahead. I feel like this is tailor-made for the Criterion Collection, and if it comes out there, I could personally see myself buying this and Breathless and sort of watch them back to back, right? But yeah, I enjoyed this film for what it was, but I would say this is for the film nerd crowd, right? So if you're not a film nerd, you wouldn't really care for this. But if you are, yeah, I highly recommend checking this out, right? So sticking with the Oscars now, yeah, I am happy to report that Netflix have another Best Picture nomination on their hands with
Right.
this one. Train
Nice.
Dreams. This is
Okay.
a new film from Clint Bentley. I was looking up this guy's filmography. I couldn't find anything on Wikipedia. I guess I should have gone on IMDb and found something, but I didn't. What I just knew about it is that it premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, is getting a lot of praise, and it was coming out on Netflix. So the trailer for
Right.
it had an epic feel to it, and I'll compare this to a film that we saw earlier this year. And when I bring up a certain name, it'll be like, wow, the coincidence about this. But anyway, so I saw this, like, all right, I gotta watch this, right? So I checked it out. And what it's about in a nutshell, right? It's, all right, so it's based off of a novella which came out in 2011, right? And it
Right.
centers on pretty much we see the life of this character, right? This fictional character by the name of Robert Grenier, who is played brilliantly by Joel Edgerton, right? And
Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. He in this. Okay.
yeah,
Nice.
he is.
Nice.
He is.
Yeah.
He's front and center here, right? And yeah, we just basically seen his life. Just well, okay. So it starts off with him as a kid, but then eventually he grows up. It's centered in or about the state of Idaho, right? So as it's set up here, he is just trying to make his way through life, right? And he happens to find this through cutting trees, right? And it kind of established why
Right.
it's all about constructing railroads, right? So he has been cutting trees all of his life, right? And then, well, in the process, he meets a girl, falls in love with her, they have a daughter, and then something very tragic happens, and
Right.
now he's just basically trying to find his way through life, right? But then, as you'd expect with a film like this, and the scope that it's going for, America is changing, right? So where it's set up now,
Right. Right.
they mentioned the Great War, right? So from there,
Right.
when the
Right.
moment
Oh, it's
happens,
World War One, right? So right after World
exactly,
War.
yeah. So from there now, we just sort of like just see him try to find his way, and that in a nutshell is what the film is about, right? So just to get it out of the way, in terms of the narrative, right? Um, it does feature narration. The narration actually is done by Will Patton of all people. Like what? Like you in this? Okay,
Okay.
okay, yeah. Now I know some people have the issues with narration, right? Mainly because well, not so much the
Yeah.
overuse of it, but it's like, the unreliable narrator, right? And yes, it does play into the unreliable narrator tropes. I'll give a film that there's certain shots where I saw that I was like, now I see where the influence come from. But the narration in
Right.
particular comes from this particular film, at least in my opinion, right? But yes, I know some people don't like narration. Because, yeah, it's like, okay, you're telling me this, but how do I know it's true? Should you be showing me this? But it's like, in this case, it makes sense. And because it's a novella, and because it's basically chronicling this man's life, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that it adds, yeah, just enough, gravitas to the film itself, right? But yeah, just to get this out of the way, right? This is one of the best looking films I have seen all year. Literally, Ricardo, literally every shot is like a portrait to me.
Nice.
It's just gorgeous. It's like a tableau of just gorgeosity, right? Yeah, and I
Right.
have seen literally every single shot. And most of it is outdoors. There's exterior shots where there's the shots of the forests, of the trees. Dog, have to spoil this, right? There's a shot where they literally like set the camera on the bark of a tree, and you see this tree falling off.
Okay.
I
Okay.
watched that
Nice.
scene twice. I like us, like the movie don't start us, like
Okay, right.
dog,
I remember.
dog.
I think it's Moonlight. Moonlight had a great shot. Like Moonlight had a great shot with the car door. Like stuff like that. So yeah,
And as you bring up
stuff,
Moonlight, that was one of the first times. I think that was the first time I ever saw that camera in car door scene. I never
right.
saw that before until I saw Moonlight. But good thing you bring up that, right? That's like one of the best scenes ever, in my opinion, right? But yeah, they strap a camera to a tree, a fallen tree,
Yeah.
like us, like
Right.
what we doing us, and similar to I
Right.
should mention, similar to Nouvelle Vague, it's also done in 4:3 format as well, right? I
Right.
think it
Right. Right.
works, right, in terms of setting up the scope of it, right? So the film that I was talking about in terms of unreliable narration is Barry Lyndon from Stanley Kubrick, right? And
Right.
I
Right.
saw
Right.
a
Right. Right.
couple of Stanley Kubrick shots, right, which is where you will zero in on a camera on a character, sorry, as a slow zoom out, I just see a lot of detail in that zoom out. He does it twice with a character. I'm not gonna say who. And when I saw it, I was like, yep, that's some Stanley Kubrick shit. I fucks with that. That's great,
Yep.
right? And the film that I would say is the perfect film to compare this to is one we saw for the Oscars this year, The Brutalists.
Right. Right.
Yeah, where we're seeing this chronicle of, this person's time in, the American experience now, through the eyes of his
Right.
character, right? And I was actually shocked when I saw this name, because I see the face, but I wasn't really thinking about it, But then when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, is she? Felicity Jones, who was
she's
also
okay.
in The Brutalists. I was like,
Right, okay,
wow,
right.
boy, like your talent,
Yeah, she got her own.
your talent agent, boy. God damn. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would say I could see her. I could see her getting a best actress nom, right? Even though I would make the argument that she does a little bit more. I should say she stood out more in The Brutalist. Like she has more to do, right? But that's just given where the character is in that film. This one, her character performance wise is great, right? But it's just that, there is not much of her in the film. That's the only spoiler I'll give. Right. So that's why
Right.
I can't honestly see her get to the Best Actress nomination. Unless the Academy is just like, well, look, we love her in Brutalist, so here we go, right? And if she gets a nomination, great, right? If she wins, great, right?
Right.
But certainly, Joel Edgerton had to get a Best Actor nom for this, boy.
Okay, nice one. Yeah.
This is
okay.
one of the best performances I've ever seen from him, and this comes from somebody who still thinks like his performance in Warrior is one of the best like I've ever seen.
Yeah. I really liked him in that. Yeah.
Yeah, boy. Like he is that stoic, worn down character, and he just plays this so well in this film.
Now he was super underrated for me. So it was like, yeah, he had to get a little something, and it looked like he could be a right time for him kind of thing. So you could find, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And how you see his character play out over time works as well, right? And this is where the narration works, right? Because they set up something where he kind of fears death, or he fears that death will come for him.
Right.
Like any moment that he experiences happiness, and this is all too relatable to me. Yeah, anytime you feel some sort of happiness or ease or comfort,
yeah.
you know something gonna come and hit you.
Shot.
Yeah. And then he sees it with the people that he works with, right? There's a couple of genuinely shocking moments in the film, right? Even though the movie is rated PG-13, right? There's a couple of like shocking moments. There's one scene in particular, and it's all done in one take. I watch that, and it's not so much shocking. It's just how it happens. And like that's one of the hardest scenes I've ever seen in a movie all year. When you see it, Ricardo, you know what I talk about.
Right.
That's so
Right.
hard. Like if that person involved could get a nomination for that role alone, is great. Even though you don't see much of his face, that's all I'll say. That's my thing. But the context of it all and how it happens, I was like, that real hard, that real dread. I love that. That was great, right? But it's just how unexpected it is, right? But it makes sense in terms of the story that's being told. I love that, right? But yeah, Joel was fantastic in this though. You really feel for him throughout this, right? But it's not like, and there's moments where he kind of shows his vulnerability, and it makes a lot of sense, right?
Right.
But yeah, but this is stoicism about it makes a lot of sense. Like, look, I'm a man, and I'm in this world here. And listen, like I know it don't really have nothing out there for me. So like, look, and it's set up that I love how this set up here too. Is like, listen, like this is all I could do, Like, all right, I will do a little odd job here or there, but listen, this is where I get my bread and butter. This is how I had to feed my family. Like, listen, you telling me that's something else out there, okay, fine, right? And then like life comes and tell you, yeah, kind of had to get out of your comfort zone, bro. You had to kind of go out and try something else, and that's what he does. And in the process, he kind of learns to move forward from the tragedy. But I love how the show sort of sets up how difficult it is, but it's necessary. You had to move forward, and that's again something really relatable to me, right? Also, as I mentioned, cinematography fantastic across the board. Direction, I would say from Clint Bentley is great as well, right? And I'll also say best original song too, even though it's like the song plays in the end credits, but I need to find the title of it, right? But I know that could be a best, original song nominee as well. It has that feel to it, right? And when I say feel as a wrap up here, right? I could see people, not a lot of people, but I could see some people calling this kind of Oscar baity, in that sense. Like, okay, we have to have the score, the epic scope, we have to have these things be like this, right? But I would say no, like it really feels like a label of it. Nothing feels forced, nothing feels like it's there to drum up Oscar nomination. It feels like they really wanted to tell this genuinely heartfelt story. And this is the word to really sum up this film. It's truly a heartfelt film, right? Yes, you've seen the American experience stuff done millions of times, right? But within the context of this guy who is kind of forced to move forward in life, I personally have not seen that, right? Like I've seen the immigrant story with the Brutalist, right? But I've never seen one where a character who kind of getting by in life is kind of forced through all these trials and tribulations to move forward. I've never really seen that before, or maybe I've seen films like that before, but that in this context, right? But I could see some people thinking, yeah, I've seen this before, blah, 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 but it's like, nah, this, I'm not saying that this film is wholly, like entirely original, right? But it feels like something that you've never really seen before, right? From the scope of it to the perspective of it as well, right? And how it plays out to the very end, really worked for me. Even the end as well too really touched me, right? So this is one of the best films I've seen this year. This is a film that I hope will be talked about by year's end and into the Oscar season as well. And I could see Netflix also adding this, also submitting this, I should say, along with Frankenstein. And I could see Nouvelle Vague being submitted to it. But I really think, I tell you this one time, Ricardo, I really think that the two big films will be Frankenstein and Train Dreams. I really think it could be these two. So for me, rating wise, strong 4 to very light 4.5 out of 5. This is one of the year's best films, and it's on Netflix too. So look at that, right? But it is a real deal. It is certainly, to me, it lived up to the hype. I was hearing about the hype going into this film, about how great it was, right? Just little, like this, it wasn't like big, but it was just like, okay, I hear a little thing about, the response it got in this and Sundance, stuff like that. But then when I see it for myself, I'm like, yeah, boy. Again, just from that cinematography, just literally every shot looks great. And I'll also mention this last year. If you are a Terrence Malick fan, you would see the Terrence Malick worship in this, right? Like Tree of Life, which is one of my favorite films from him, right? And also the use of narration. Badlands did that. That's in my collection. I got that through Criterion, right? One of the best Terrence Malick films ever. And that's a debut film, eh? Think about that, right? But you could see Terrence Malick worship in this as well, right? But even if you see the little subtle homages to great filmmakers and films, that's not to say that this movie doesn't have anything to say or isn't trying to be great on its own merits, right? I think that it absolutely is, right? It absolutely does that, right? But cinematography, I could see getting a nomination. If Felicity Jones get a nomination, okay, cool. But I really think Joel could be the one who could who will get the nomination. And boy, if he wins, boy, wow, that would be a big deal. That would be a big deal. Because I just off my head, I can't think of any actor this year who really like pull off like a true like Oscar worthy performance. I could make the argument as a wrap up here. I could make the argument. I could see a Michael B. Jordan getting a best actor nom. I could see that. I could see it. If he doesn't, I could call snub. I could be like, I don't understand. But what he did in that film was kind of brilliant, though. When you think about it,
Yeah, no. I thought he was great in that. I thought he was great. We were saying that he wasn't great, but I thought he was pretty good in that.
Yeah, and it's not just because he plays twins, no, like he was. Just the characters were great. Yeah.
No, they felt like two different people.
That's right.
It was really well done.
Yeah. So I could see him get a nomination, but I will be the first one to yell snub if that man gets snub. But I really think that Jewel will get that nomination, and if he wins, boy, I will be happy. But definitely check out Train Dreams. It's one of his best films.